Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man ittaba'a hudah. Afterwards, inshallah, with regards to the situation of the fasting, I would like to begin with the session that I have already mentioned about. That is a kind of short recap related to the issues of the fasting. So the book that we are going through is one of the popular book of Ibn-Bassam, Sheikh Abdullahil-Bassam, by the name Taisirul-Allam, Umdatul-Ahkam. So instead of going through the entire content, I will just take one chapter from the book which is dedicated for the fasting. So we are going to discuss related to the Kitabus-Siyam in Taisirul-Allam, Umdatul-Ahkam. We know as for the book of Umdatul-Ahkam of Sheikh Abdullahil-Bassam has a lot of interpretations. There are a lot of ulama that gave a kind of a sharh to that particular book. One of the popularly known one is the Taisirul-Allam, and that of Sheikh of Ibn Uthaymeen, that is Tanbihul-Allam. So if we have enough time, we are going to go through several authors related to the sharh of Umdatul Ahkam. So but Taisirul-Allam usually comes in two volumes, for example, or in a single volume. So the one that I have here with me is the one that came in two volumes. So directly we are going through the Kitabus-Siyam. So let us go through the contents, because there are a lot of important informations that you will not get it that is in any other pamphlets or any other books except this book, for example. And because he is given a kind of that is a sharh, a kind of interpretation that is to the hadith from Sahih-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, which was already given by that is Abdullahil-Bassam. So Ibn Bassam started to take the hadith one after the other. As I know, there are a lot of sessions that I have delivered related to Taisirul-Allam and also Umdatul Ahkam. But due to the situation that we are, or due to the kind of festival we are within of the Ramadan, so it's better for us to have a kind of refresh related to some of the information of the fasting. So inshallah, let us start with the session, inshallah. So there are some of the participants here. So inshallah we'll just start maybe within a few seconds, inshallah. So if we start from the chapter Kitabus-Siyam, he started asluhu fil lagha wal imsak. Asluhu fil lagha al imsak. He says that the origin of the word as-siyam in the field of, that is in the linguistical point of approach, is al-imsak, cessation. So that's why you would see in several publications, several authors, that's the word that they give or they give to the meaning of as-siyam. If you said as-siyam or as-sawm, similar meaning, but it can be referred to so many issues. If someone ceased from eating the diet, from eating food, or from taking his meal, or from taking her meal, she can be termed as a person that is performing as-siyam, that is performing the fasting, meaning she ceased from eating and drinking, or he ceased from eating and drinking. So as-siyam, it came in so many issues, but the basic point of origin, the origin of the word, if we take it in the grammatical aspect, it does not come from like for example the Greek origin or from Latin origin, because it is a kind of Arabic word. So Ibn Bassam says asluhu في اللغة الإمساك. The origin of it from the point of that is literature, it is considered as al-imsak, cessation, abstaining. So he said وفي الشرع, in terms of religious jurisdiction, in terms of that is a religious aspect, it is considered as al-imsaku عن المفطرات مع النية. al-imsaku عن المفطرات مع النية, cessation from mufattirat, nullifiers, مع النية, along with intention. So meaning that if a person sees himself, he abstain from any nullifier, anything that can nullify his fasting with intention, then he is considered as a person who is performing the fasting. So he says من طلوع الفجر إلى غروب الشمس, من طلوع الفجر إلى غروب الشمس, that is from the emergence of Fajr down to the sunset. So meaning, since from the time where the Fajr started, where the Fajr initiated, Fajr is a kind of sign for the coming of the daytime. So from the dawn to sunset, from the emergence of Fajr down to the time where the sun would, that is gets set in the west cast. So from طلوع الفجر إلى غروب الشمس. وصيام شهر رمضان, if you are talking about the fasting of the month of Ramadan, هو ركن الثالث من أركان الإسلام. It is ركن الثالث, the three pillar from the pillar of Islam. So this is the basic important aspect of it. It is part of the arkan, because the religion is built upon 5 pillars. So anything of the pillars has to be maintained. If it gets missed, then there is a kind of decrement in someone's religion. So for you to know that it is very important, it came from the 5 pillars of the religion, from that is Arkanul Islam, as how it came in an authentic hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar, بني الإسلام على 5: شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة وصوم رمضان وحج البيت لمن استطاع إليه سبيلا. So it is the third rukun. It is the third rukun after that is the previous arkan from the 5 pillars of the deen. We know some of the righteous predecessors, they consider it as the 4th one, but majority of the righteous predecessors, they consider it as the 3rd pillar. So you see, it is very important. That is after the prayer before the zakat, they consider it. Some they consider zakat before, that is the fasting, because that's how some of the ayat come, waqimus salata wa atuz zakat. So they consider after the testimony, the shahada, then what will come after is that is the salat, then after that the zakat, then as-sawm. So he's saying that it is the 3rd pillar, doesn't violate the normal, that is sayings of the righteous predecessors. So if you take that is as-salat was zakat, then the 3rd one is as-siyam. So meaning, if you are to exclude, that is the testimony. If you include the testimony, then it would be the 4th one. So there is no problem with his statement. And he says that لأنه تجتمع فيه أنواع الصبر الثلاثة, because 2 categories of patience get involved within the fasting. لأنه تجتمع فيه أنواع الصبر الثلاثة, because all the 3 forms of patience are entitled with the that is with the fasting. الأول الصبر على طاعة الله, patience in obeying the Almighty. So if a person is performing the fasting, you would see him hearkening with patience. He will not go into those nullifiers until the time of sunset. So you see, someone is hearkening with patience in order to please the Almighty. وَالصَّبْرَ عَلَى مَعَاصِ اللَّهِ, and patience in order to avoid disobeying the Almighty. So in order to abstain from disobeying the Almighty, a person must hearken with patience. He would have the accessibility, but due to the conscience of his maker, he will not go into that. Like for example, az-zina, for example, or shurb al-khamr, or akil riba, all those issues. If a person is performing the fasting, he would avoid these major sins in order not to disobey his creator. وَالصَّبْرَ عَلَى أَقْدَارِ اللَّهِ الْمُؤْلِمَةِ, and the third one is patience on the decree of Allah, the painful ones. So there are some of the decrees, a kind of decree or a kind of predestination or foreordainment. As we know, al-iman bil-qada'i wal-qadar, or al-iman bil-qadari khayrihi wa sharrihi, it is part of the articles of iman. So for the iman, someone has to believe in the predestination, whether it is good one or an evil one. Anything that happened to you, anything that come towards you, you must to take it as part of the decree of the Almighty, that it was already predestined, that it will happen unto you. So you see, you don't have anything to mention which will not be pleased by your maker. So if a person is hearkening with this, he maintains patience in the destiny, in the decree of the Almighty, the one that is painful. For example, the fasting. For the 30 days, you would feel the hunger. It is painful at times. For example, you would be starved, you would experience starvation, some at times a kind of extremity of thirst, for example. But still, someone has to maintain the patience to avoid, that is, taking any kind of nullifier. So by this you would see there are three forms of as-sabr. Three forms of sabr are related to the fasting. And first, for someone to as-sabru ala ta'atillah, patience in obeying the Almighty. Was-sabru ala ma'asillah, was-sabru ala ma'asillah, or was-sabru an ma'asillah, or an isyanillah. A person must hearken with patience in order to avoid disobeying his maker. Was-sabri ala aqdarillahi al-mu'limah, and hearkening with patience in order to carry, in order to take, in order to consider the decree of Allah, even if it is a kind of painful one. So with this we would be able to, that is, understand that for you to maintain the fasting, for you to perform the fasting, you must to hearken with patience. With only patience, you would be able to get the reward that was entitled with the fasting. He said, وَلِأَنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى نَسَبَ الصَّوْمَ إِلَى نَفْسِهِ, لأن الله تعالى نسب الصوم إلى نفسه, because the Almighty has already attributed the fasting to himself. The Almighty has already attributed the fasting to himself. He has already attributed the fasting. He said, الصوم لي وأنا أجزي به. The fasting belongs to me. I'm the one responsible to give the reward of it. So that's one of the issues. So وَوَعَدَ بِالْجَزَاءِ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ قِبَلِهِ سُبْحَانَهُ, and he has promised to give a reward on it from his own side. So nobody would give you the reward of staying for that particular period for performing the fasting but the Almighty. Nobody would pay you. You are just doing in order to seek the divine pleasure, in order to seek the pleasure of the Almighty. So that's one of the issues. ولأنه سر بين الرب وبين عبده, ولأنه سر بين الرب وبين عبده, because it is a kind of sirrun, a kind of secret between that is between a person and his Lord, between the Lord and his servant. Suppose, for example, you are living inside a room. Nobody knows whether you drink water, you eat something, or you go for your sexual desires. Nobody knows. That it is a kind of secret between you and your Maker, and that's it. So one thing is that whenever you are performing the fasting, you should know it is something that is of secrecy between you and your Lord. He's the one to give you the reward. Nobody is there to pay you. So you must do it as how He prescribed unto you. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. So the purpose is for you to attain, that is the piousness, to attain fight. لعلكم تتقون. So that's it. So it's a kind of secret between the Almighty, between the Lord and His servant. فهو من أعظم الأمانات. Thereby it is to the greater level of trust, to the greater level of honesty. A person who performs the fasting based on the prescription of the Almighty, then he is a trustee, or he is a person to be given the trust. He is a honest person. Suppose a person is inside his room. Nobody knows whether he stopped the fasting, whether he broke the fasting, or she broke the fasting. He eat or he don't. He drink or he don't. He go for his sexual desires or not. So it is a kind of secret between the Lord and His servant, and nobody knows. It is between you and your Maker. It is between you and your Maker. If you do it perfectly, you would get the reward from your Maker. So anything that was attributed to God, or He attributed it to Himself, meaning it comprises huge amount of reward, huge amount of rewards. أما حكمه وأسراره فليس في مقدور هذه النبذة المقتصرة أن تبين ذلك. As for the wisdom behind this, the wisdom behind the fasting, and the secret that is within the fasting, this kind of synopsis will not be able to explain everything related to that. So Ibn-Bassam, he stated that if we are to open a kind of discussion related to the wisdom behind the fasting, or if we are to open a chapter or to open a kind of discussion regarding the secret behind the fasting, so we would take much time and we require a lot of contents. So but for this synopsis, this chapter of his will not be able to provide all the wisdom, all the secret behind the fasting. So this is a kind of tawadu. It's a kind of humbleness from him. Although the information he provided in the book or in the chapter has encompasses all the points that you are required to know related to the fasting. So that's one of the issue. وإنما أشير إلى قليل من كثير. What I would do is that I would indicate some minute points from the huge contents. What he says is that what I want to do is I would explain some of the few points from the huge amount of contents. So there are a lot of information to be mentioned related to the fasting, but what he want to do is that he would highlight some of the points, not all, but some of the basic important points. ليعلم القارئ شيئا من أسرار الله في شرعه. So as for the reader, the one that will read, the one that will go through the book, would be able to know أسرار الله في شرعه, the wisdom of the Almighty, the secret of the Almighty in His legislation. For any single legislation that comes from the Almighty, you would find so many wisdoms and so many secrets behind that. So he says فَيَزْدَادُ إِيمَانًا وَيَقِينًا. So as for a person to have a kind of increment in his iman and in his certainty. So that's what he says. With this only a person would have a kind of iman and a kind of increment in his certainty. So there are two factors, al-iman wal-yaqeen. First and certainty. If you have first on something, you will not have problem with it. And if you have certainty on something, you will not have doubt in that. So that's it. So if someone know the wisdoms and the secret behind the legislation of the fasting, definitely he would develop, that is his iman. His iman would get developed. He would have a kind of increment of iman and also of yaqeen, certainty. And that's it. في وقت تزعزعت فيه العقائد, most especially in the time where the aqidah is vibrating, the time where the theology is vibrating, the concept of tawheed is vibrating. Someone will tell you, do not study tawheed, don't even consider the issues related to the usul. So in this moment, most especially in our century, where the issue of aqidah is vibrating, so you see there is need for you to know the wisdoms and the secret behind the fasting. With that you would have a kind of increment in your iman, and you would have a kind of increment in your yaqeen. تصوين والإيمان يزيد وينقص, يزيد بالطاعة وينقص بالمعصية. Iman increase and decrease. It increase with the level of obedience, and it also decrease with the level of disobedience. So if you disobey your maker, you may have a kind of decrement in your iman. If you obey your maker, you may have a kind of increment of iman. So knowing the way to obey your maker is part of the legislation. It is part of the obedience to learn. اعرفوني قبل أن تعبدوني. Know me before you worship me. That's what the Almighty mentioned in one of the Hadith al-Qudsi. Although there are some of the issues, some of the analysis behind the Hadith. Allahul Musta'an. So you have to know the Almighty first before you worship Him. And how can you know the Almighty? Through knowledge. You must learn. Because the first revelation that came to our beloved Prophet is Iqra, learn, study. You have to read. And today nobody is there to support you to read or to assist you, but rather people are trying to push you down. They don't want you to study. They don't want you to learn. Because if you learn, if you study, if you read, you know something that was already hidden for you. You'll understand the current life scenarios. So you must study. The Rasul never changed the situation of the people of Mecca unless when the knowledge arrived to him. And that's it. You cannot change the maze that you are facing in your community or in your society or in your nation unless through knowledge. Unless if you study. If you fail to study, then you would see how you can change that particular maze, and that's it. So before you worship the Almighty, you must know Him. That is true knowledge. You must know who the Almighty is. Otherwise you may end up worshiping something considering that as the Lord. So that's one of the issue, and that's what he is trying to mention here. He said في وقت تزعزعت فيه العقائد, in a kind of situation where the aqidah is vibrating. It is vibrating. There are a lot of issues here. There are a lot of issues there. There are a lot of issues in the social media, and there are a lot of issues outside the social media which are playing with the issue of theology. And that's it. وتضعضع فيه الإيمان وتضعضع فيه الإيمان, and a kind of situation where the iman is tumbling. The iman is tumbling. most especially when you come across some of the statements, some of the sayings of some of the individuals. You will be surprised of you listening to some of the influence statement from some of the people that you are thinking that they understand the deen. But Allahul-Musta'an, they never, even if they claim that unto themselves. So in order for you to have a strong iman, to have a kind of certified yaqeen, Allah Musta'an, to have certified certainty, a kind of concrete certainty, you must to follow the divine legislation. And how can you follow it? Through knowledge, by knowledge, not just by mental conceit, not just by a kind of your idea, just your thoughts. No, by knowledge. You have to do it with certainty. Whatsoever you would do, you have to do it with certainty and faith. And if you have these two key factors, nothing will draw you away from that path that you are following. Even if the entire creators would gather in order to draw you down, they will not be able to do. They will not be able to do, because you have that faith and the certainty. So he mentioned that, so with this, a person would have a kind of increment of iman, increment in yaqeen, most especially in the time where the aqidah is vibrating, in the time where the iman is tumbling. And he says that فَإِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. To Allah we belong, and to Him we shall return. And that's it. It's a kind of surprise. There are a lot of examples to give of this kind of issues that play with someone's iman, someone's aqidah. Allahul Musta'an. فَمِن تِلْكَ الْحِكَمِ السَّامِيَةِ. What of those kind of superintended wisdom? What of those kind of that is exotic wisdoms? Ibadatillah. There is worshiping of the Almighty. So there is ibadatillah. So al-ibadah, as we know, ismun jami'un likulli ma yuhibbuhu Allah wa yardahu min al-a'mali al-zahirati wal-batinah. اسم جامع لكل ما يحبه الله ويرضاه من الأعمال والأقوال والأعمال الظاهرة والباطنة. So this is one of the basic definition of al-ibadah. Anything of utterances, actions, those that are hidden and those that are apparent, which pleases the Almighty, that is ibadah. So that's it. So وَالْخُضُوعَ لَهُ. And part of the exotic wisdom in the routine of a human is to be humble, most especially towards his maker. لِيَكُونَ الصَّائِمَ مُقْبِلًا اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. So as the fasting person would face towards the direction of his maker, the direction of Allah the Most High. خَادِئًا خَاشِئًا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ. Of whom he would become خَاشِئًا خَاضِعًا. خَاشِئًا خَاضِعًا. A person that hearkens with tranquility, a person that hearkens with humbleness. So he would be humble and he would maintain tranquility بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ, before him. That is his maker, before the Almighty. حينما ينكر سلطان الشهوة. At the same time, where the power of desires is battling the faith. So where the power of desires come, at that moment someone needs to be humble in order to please his maker. So this is one of the issues related to the fasting. Suppose maybe you pass by to a particular restaurant or a kitchen. The aroma coming outside, that is coming from that kitchen or from that restaurant, get into that is your nose, that is sensitiveness. So you feel the aroma, you perceive the aroma. So in that kind of situation, you may have the desire, but due to the kind of legislation, you know that you are performing the fasting, you will avoid satisfying that desire. So this is one of the issue that you should know. A person must be humble, he should maintain the tranquility, and that's one of the issue. فإن القوة تغلب بالطغيان والبطر, because whenever the power comes, a person is powerful. Whenever the power comes, so power triggers tyranny, والبطر, and haughtiness. So if you are talking about power, yes, power is very important. To gain the power, to be superior, to have the supremacy over others is something that is welcomed. But one thing is that usually, according to the behavioral analyst, according to the people of knowledge, they consider power to trigger something which will not be pleased by the Almighty, like the tyranny. تجري الطغيان والبطر. Power, القوة تجري الطغيان والبطر. Power triggers الطغيان, tyranny, and haughtiness. Like what is going on this time, for example, we see of the conflicts, for example, of the war that is going on, for example, these days. Everyone is feeling that he is superior, he has the power. So that's why you would see a lot of treacheries, tyranny, and so many issues with regards to haughtiness. But suppose if the people would calm down, they would bring the issue to the table, so they would be able to resolve the issue. But if you are to use the power, there are a lot of issues that using power will never resolve the issues, will never solve those kind of issues. You just need to calm for a while. So under it. So power normally triggers tyranny and haughtiness. You have the wealth, you have the position, unit of the leadership, and other issues. So if care is not taken, this can be utilized in the ways that will never be pleased by the Almighty. And the purpose of human on this earth is to worship his Maker. It's for him to worship the Almighty, to please the Almighty. So one of the basic factors that leads human to disobey his Maker is power. We need the power of wealth, the power of position, that is power of leadership, or the power of having access to so many vital issues, so many, that is resources. So having accessibility to so many resources, having the power of leadership, the power of wealth, they can trigger, they can stimulate someone to go into wrongdoing. So that's it. And we see a lot of issues here, like what is going on between Russia and Ukraine now. What the two directions they are using power. And these are the issues that supposed to be brought to the table. So Allahul Musta'an. Normally, I'm just giving a kind of example of what Ibn Bassam is trying to mention here. So he says, كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى. He cited an ayah from Surah Al-Alaq. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى. Nay, innal insana la yatagha. Verily, human is haughty. The human used to be haughty. The human is tyrant. So if the human is given the power of everything, he can become a tyrant. And anyone, don't look towards a particular, that is a race of the people, or particular, that is a clan, or particular country or continents. No, every human, when he get developed, he has the accessibility of everything. So if care is not taken, he can be a tyrant. So that's the reason why there is need for legislation. There is need for policy. So if we have good policies, we have rules and regulation, everyone is bound to follow those protocols, those policies. So there would be peace and harmony. And that's one of the issues. After the ayah, he continued to mention فَلْيَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ ضَعِيفٌ فَقِيرٌ. So the human should know that he is weak and he is poor before the Almighty. Yes, a human can be powerful with respect to other humans, but if we compare the human with the Creator, the human is so weak and also is a poor individual. بين يدي الله حينما يرى ضعفه وعجزه فينكر في نفسه الكبر والعظيمة. He said that فليعلم أنه ضعيف فقير بين يدي الله حينما يرى ضعفه وعجزه فينكر في نفسه الكبر والعظمة. So he should know that he is weak and he is faqir, he is poor, he is in need of something from his maker. He is not having everything, most especially before his maker, at the time when he would see his weakness, when he would see his ajaz, he would see his weaknesses, and he would see his lapses. If you said al-ajiz and da'af, they are synonyms to each other. Normally al-da'af signifies to weakness. If we said a kind of al-ajiz, something that someone is not able to do. So if you are not able to do something, you are not having the capability of doing something, you are considered as al-ajiz. Al-ajiz, and al-ajiz can be al-da'if in terms of law. So al-da'afu wal-ajiz, all these are weakness, are forms of weakness. Al-da'afu, literal weakness. Al-ajiz, deficiency, is also a form of weakness, or a form of weaknesses. So فينكر في نفسه الكبر والعظمة. So with this he would be able to avoid in his mind al-kibr, arrogancy, wal-azama, and the superiority, the supremacy, arrogancy and supremacy. So when a person identifies that he is weak, his power is so weak, his power is not powerful to the level of the divine power, he would be able to recognize his weakness. With that, he would avoid arrogancy and supremacy. So with this, we would be able to understand some of the issues related to the fasting. He's trying to relate the points, because when a person stays for a long period of time, he stays for long hours, like 13 hours, without eating, without drinking, without going for the call of nature, and meaning the sexual desires. So he would not be comfortable, would not be in comfort. So he would identify his weakness, and that's it. That's why sometimes, even if you have a power, you have the means of doing something, you have the means to punish someone, at times you can persevere, you can just humble yourself. Try to identify your weakness also, because at times power makes someone to forget his weakness. So do not let the power to deceive you of not remembering your weaknesses. So he says that فيستكين لربه ويلين لذلك فيستكين لربه ويلين لخلقه. But there is a kind of correction here. I think there is a kind of typographic error. He says that فيستكين لربه. With that he would be able to humble himself to his maker. ويلين لخالقه instead of لخلقه. ويلين لخالقه. So he will yell to his maker. He can yell to his maker when he identifies his weaknesses. Without eating, he would get into starvation. So it is a kind of weakness in human. So the Almighty is the one that is omnipotent. The Almighty mentioned, إن الله هو الرزاق ذو القوة المتين ما أريد منهم من رزق وما أريد أن يطعمون إن الله هو الرزاق ذو القوة المتين. I need nothing of provisions from them, neither do I want them to feed me. The Almighty is the Al-Razzaq. He is the provider, ذو القوة المتين, the owner of tremendous might, the owner of tremendous power. So that's one of the issues. If you have the power, research, think about your weakness, research about your weaknesses. So try as such to know how to tackle your weaknesses before utilizing your power to your fellow humans. That's one of the issues. So in the time of fasting, I found a kind of fasting person, someone that is performing the fasting, he would identify his weaknesses. So he mentioned ومنها حكم الاجتماعية, part of the hikmah, part of the wisdoms, part of the wisdom behind the fasting is al-ijtimaiyya. There is congregational one, there are congregational wisdoms. من اجتماعهم على إبادة واحدة, of them gathering for the purpose of one act of ibadah, for the purpose of one act of worship. في وقت واحد, in a single moment. At a single moment of time they would gather in order to perform one of the ibadah, like the Siyam, the fasting. In a single month everyone is performing the fasting, like the Taraweeh, the Tahajjud. People would gather congregationally in order to perform that ibadah. وصبرهم جميعا, وصبرهم جميعا, and their patience entirely, their patience congregationally. Everyone would maintain the patience. Everyone is performing the fasting. He knows it is something between him and his maker. قويهم وضعيفهم, the strong one among them and the weak one among them. شريفهم وضعيفهم, the honorable ones and the weak ones, the honorable among them and the poor among them. That is the weak one among the humans, among the believers. Everyone is performing the fasting, the rich and the poor. غنيهم وفقيرهم, the rich and the poor, everyone. على معاناتها وتحملها, everyone is doing something in order to focus that act of ibadah, in order to focus on that act of ibadah. وَتَحَمُّلِهَا, and the perseverance of it. So everyone, the honorable and the weak one, the rich and the poor, the strong and the weak, everyone is performing a single ibadah, which is the fasting. So everyone is targeting the exact purpose of that ibadah. وَتَحَمُّلِهَا, and everyone is competing in order to persevere that ibadah, in order to be able to do it. مما يسبب ربط قلوبهم وتعلق أرواحهم, of what cause ربط قلوبهم, of that which cause ربط قلوبهم, that is locking of their mind, وتعلق أرواحهم, and the sympathy of their mind. So what he is trying to mention here is that everyone is trying to perform that act of ibadah, everyone is trying to perform the fasting, so that will help in order to lock their mind and in order to humble their souls. Their souls would be humble, because everyone is feeling the weakness, the starvation of hunger. Everyone is feeling the thirst. So that will lock someone's heart, meaning someone's mind, and it will also lock the soul of a person. وَلَمِّ كَلِمَتِهِمْ, and it will soften their words. And that's why you would see during the tea time, most especially during the extremity of heart, due to the fasting, the rate of quarreling, the rate of argument decreases, because everyone is starving and everyone considers his weaknesses. Everyone is expecting the iftar to come in the few hours. Everyone is waiting for the time of iftar. So with that, the level of argument decreases, the level of quarreling decreases, because of that kind of weakness in human. وليس شيء أقوى من هذه الإرادات المتينة. There is nothing that is much more powerful than this strong purpose. Nothing is more powerful than this strong purpose. التي تحكمها أقوى الدعايات التي لا تحكمها أقوى الدعايات, of which the most giant colloquium, the most biggest invitation, the most biggest feast, or the most biggest occasion will never gather this kind of wisdoms. What he is trying to emphasize here, التي لا تحكمها أقوى الدعايات, of which the most strong colloquium will never rule this kind of issues. It is of little for you to see a kind of gathering that will help someone to think or to identify his weakness and to identify the divine power, to make someone to be humble, to submerge someone's heart and soul into tranquility. Majority of our gathering, we laugh, we forget about that is our weakness. Everyone is trying to to show his power, but this is not that is the basic issue, because the purpose of our living is for us to worship the Almighty. So the Almighty decided to legislate some of the rules like that of the fasting, of which if you perform the fasting, you would have some of the benefits. There are a lot of wisdoms behind the fasting. So he says, كما أنه سبب عطف بعضهم على بعض. As how it is a reason for some of them to sympathize with others. So each one would develop a kind of sympathy of other. وَرَحْمَةِ بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْضًا, and the mercy of sub-segment of them. This segment would have mercy, would be merciful to the other segments. حينما يحس الغني ألم الجوع ولدغ الظمأ, like the time when the rich person, the one that is financially buoyant, when he feel the pain of hunger, and he feel the freaking of thirst, at that particular moment he would sympathize with the poor person. فيتذكر أن أخاه الفقير يعاني هذه الآلام دهره كله. He would remember, he would reason that his brother, his colleague, the poor one, the one that is suffering with poverty, the one that is buoyanting with poverty, is experiencing this kind of pain, this kind of pains, this kind of issues for the whole decades, for his entire period of time. أن أخاه الفقير يعاني هذه الآلام دهره كله. He would think, he would identify, he would reason that, is that how the poor individuals are experiencing? Not even that in the time of fasting, but throughout their lifetime they are experiencing hunger, they are experiencing this kind of starvation, the weaknesses. So that's one of the issues related to the fasting. It develops sympathy. The rich would sympathize with the poor. So he says فيجود عليه من ماله بشيء يزيل الضغائن والإحقاد. So he would decide to support him, that is to give out to the poor person with something يزيل الضغائن والإحقاد, something that can eradicate jealousy والإحقاد, and envying. So envy and jealousy are two issues that will never leave humans to live peacefully. So you have to eradicate jealousy within you. You have to eradicate the envy within you, within your community, within your society, within your family, in order to develop. Whereas if you fail to eradicate jealousy, you fail to eradicate the envy between yourselves, there is no way of you living in a kind of life of peace and harmony. So one way to eradicate the jealousy and envy is by giving out. You must give out something. You must engage into the act of charity. You must to take something, give out to others, support the needy, support the poor. With that, you would eradicate the anger in the mind of the poor person. Do not think that he is a poor person, he don't have any, that is jealousy of you. They have that kind of jealousy. So to eradicate that kind of jealousy, there is hikmah, through charity, through sadaqah. As-sadaqah, try as such to give the sadaqah, do the charity, most especially during the time of the fasting. So that's one of the issues. And one of the key factors that will help someone to engage in the act of charity is the fasting. Because the human become weak. He will know something that he failed to know, or something that he doesn't know in the previous month. He will know some, because he is coming to the congregation to perform the prayer together with the public. He would see different issues. He would identify the weaknesses in his community, in his society, and the weakness within him. So through that, he would be able to improve. So for you to improve your family, for you to improve or to develop your community, your society, there is need for charitable act, the act of charity. Beside the act of worship, of whom you would worship your maker, there are acts of charity between you and other humans. There are matters between you and your creator, and there are matters between you and other humans, that is with your fellow humans. So in order to resolve this issue, you have to resolve the matters between you and your creator through the act of worship, through the act of righteousness, through the act of piousness. And in order to resolve the issues between your fellow humans, between you and fellow humans, you must to engage into the act of charity. You must to be charitable, meaning you have to give out charity. You have to be good to others. Do not be like those that the Almighty mentioned, وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاءُونَ. They withheld small kindness, a minute, a small kindness. They are not able to give. Do not be like those. Allahul-Musta'an. So he continued to mention, وَيَحِلَّ مُحَلَّهَ الْمَحَبَّةِ وَالْوِئَامِ وَيَحِلَّ مُحَلَّهَ الْمُحَبَّةِ وَالْوِئَامِ. So love and sympathy would replace that. So if you eradicate jealousy and envy, there is need for replacement. Definitely something will replace that. If you eradicate hunger, satisfaction will replace the hunger. Likewise, if you replace jealousy, if you eradicate jealousy, the love should be there. The love should replace the jealousy. And if you eradicate envy, sympathy should be there. So that's it. When the rich suffice for the poor, he will eradicate the jealousy and the envy, and instantaneously love and sympathy will replace the position of jealousy and envy, or envy and jealousy. وبهذا يتم السلم بين الطبقات. وبهذا يتم السلم بين الطبقات. With only this, peace would be maintained between several positions, meaning between the levels, between the level of people, the poor and the needy, the poor and the poor and the rich and the poor. So different level. People are not the same. Even to our fingers, if you look, our fingers are not the same. You have the khinsir, you have the vinsir, you have the wusta, you have the sababa, you have the ibham. All these five are not the same. And likewise the humans, they are not the same. We differ in our racial color, we differ in power, we differ in position. Your net worth will not be the same with someone's net worth. So likewise, so if you eradicate the jealousy and the envy, love and sympathy replace the two, definitely peace will be maintained. So بهذا, with this, يتم السلم بين الطبقات. The peace is to be maintained. The peace would be maintained between the positions, between the rich and the poor, between the leaders and the followers. There is need for giving out. Giving out charity eradicate envy and jealousy. and it established love and sympathy. So with love and sympathy, there would be peace and harmony. Without this, there would be no peace and harmony. So he said, وَمِنْهَا, and part of it, حكم أخلاقية تربوية. حكم أخلاقية تربوية. There are some of the rules related to the ethical morals. Some of the issues related to the etiquettes, related to the moral conducts. وهو يعلم الصبر والتحمل. He will learn patience and perseverance. He will learn how to be patient, how to persevere through the fasting. ويقوي العزيمة والإرادة. ويقوي العزيمة والإرادة. ويقوي العزيمة والإرادة. And through the fasting, he would be able to develop motivation and ambition. He would be motivated, and he would become a person with ambition, because due to the starvation, due to the hunger and the thirst, a person will not be able to accomplish some of the tasks within the daytime. So he would have at the back of his mind that after the iftar, I would do this, I would do that. So he would develop ambition, and he would also have some of the ambitions that after the major iftar, that is after the Eid al-Fitr, in the next coming months, he would do this, he would accomplish this, he would accomplish that. So you see, through this, a person will learn patience, he will know how to persevere, and he will, that is develop motivation and ambition and motivation. ويمرن على ملاقاة الشدائد وتذليلها. And he would get trained on how to carry difficulties, on how to stand firmly in order to carry the burden of difficulties. وتذليلها, in order to carry the burden of humiliation of difficulties. والصعاب وتهوينها, and hardship along with it, humiliation. There are hardship indeed, there are difficulties indeed within the fasting, maybe due to the weather condition, but with this a person would have a kind of, that is development. He would get developed, he will know how to persevere, he will know how to be patient, he will know how to carry some of the huge tasks, he will know how to carry the burden of difficulties and hardship. He says, وَمِنْهَا حِكَمٍ صِحِّيَّةٍ. وَمِنْهَا حِكَمٍ صِحِّيَّةٍ. Part of those wisdoms behind the fasting, there is حِكَمٍ صِحِّيَّةٍ, the health wisdom. There are wisdoms that are related to the health. فَإِنَّ الْمَعِدَّةِ بَيْتِ الدَّاءِ. As how it was known, إِنَّ الْمَعِدَّةِ بَيْتُ دَاعٍ. The digestive system, the digestive tract, is a home or is a house for diseases. فَإِنَّ الْمَعِدَّةِ بَيْتُ دَاءٍ, because the digestive system, it is بَيْتُ دَاءٍ, a home of diseases. So as we know, within the digestive tract we have so many microorganisms. We have the normal flora, we have even, that is the bacteria that are pathogenic, and we have the non-pathogenic like the normal flora, and other microorganisms also. Within the digestive tract you may get some of the parasites like the Tania lumbricoides, like the tapeworms for example, and other issues. So normally the digestive system is a home of diseases. This stated by Ibn Bassam. وَالْحَمِيَّةِ رَأْسِ الدَّوَاءِ. And sterility is a key factor in terms of health. وَالْحَمِيَّةِ رَأْسِ دَوَاءِ. And sterility, sterilization, There is difference between sterility and sterilization. Sterilization is a key point in treatment. So through the fasting, your digestive system would get sterilized. It would get, that is washed up. It would get, that is sterilized. All these bacteria, all the microorganisms, the pathogenic ones, they would, that is die at that particular moment of you staying for a long period without food, and the increment in the temperature, لأن الحمية, because sterilization. And we know al-hamiyya was coined from, that is a word which is indicating, or a word which is indicating, that is extremity of hotness or temperature. Al-hamiyya can be referred to temperature or sterilization, but here Ibn Bassam signifies to what he meant by that is sterilization, because you would take so many hours without eating, so the food that you have eaten previously would be digested, so your stomach will become empty. You would empty your stomach, or your that is intestine, your villi would become empty, so your digestive system would get sterilized. And he says that ولا بد للمعدة أن تأخذ فترة استراحة والاستجمام, and there is need for the digestive tract, for the digestive system, to have a time of istiraha, relaxation, والاستجمام, and recreation. So there is need for break, there is need for relaxation. Your digestive tract should have a relaxation period of which you would achieve through the month of the fasting, through the, that is the month of the fasting. For the entire days of the fasting, like the 30 days, or the time that you are performing the voluntary fasting, you would have some hours where there would be no food that are contaminated in your digestive system. Your digestive system would get sterilized. The microorganism, or the microorganisms, the bacteria, or even some of the parasites may die within that particular period of time. And that's why some of the people that are having issues with tapeworm, fasting, that is helped them. Also to the diabetic patients, although the researchers have some of the argument related to the benefit of fasting to, that is to the diabetic patients. So Allah musta'an, if you are suffering with diabetes, fasting may help you, but this is a kind of argumentative that is a recommendation. Some of the health professionals, they recommend fasting. They said fasting can help in stabilizing the blood sugar, but there are issues related to that point, because there are no much that is evidences related to that. But what we know, it is highly beneficial to the body of human. In terms of health, it is recommended. Even intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting or voluntary fasting is something that someone decide, but most especially the Shahr Ramadan, the Siyam Ramadan, that one is the one that was being legislated by the Almighty, and as how it was legislated to those that came before us. As we know, prior to the legislation of the month of Ramadan, it was reported that the Quraysh were performing 3 days fasting. Even the Sahaba, even they performed, even the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also performed three days fasting in each and every month, and the fasting of the day of Ashura. Later on, when that ayah was revealed, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه. So then the legislation become on the Ramadan instead of Ashura. that is the 10th day in the month of Muharram. So fasting, that is the obligated one, that is the obliged one, has huge of benefits. There are a lot of hikmah, wisdom behind that, of which Ibn Bassam decided to mention here. You would get some of the analysis also given by Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymin in Tanbihul-Afham, Sharh Umdatul Ahkam. So likewise even Abdullahil-Bassam, he mentioned that ولا بد للمعدة أن تأخذ فترة استراحة والاستجمام. There is need for the digestive system to have a season, a period, a time of relaxation and recreation. There is need for a break. So with that, you would have a kind of sterilization in your digestive system. And that's why so many people that are suffering with the abdominal cramp, or that is stomach problem or abdominal problem, at times that issue is not related to ulcer. It is not ulcerative colitis. It is something that is related to the level of sterilization of their digestive system. So when you visit the clinic, the physician would try as such to access your issue, and he would prescribe some of the medicaments that can give you the sterilization. But one way to have the sterilization is through the fasting. Allahul Musta'an. So he says that بعد تعب توالي الطعام عليها, after the movement of the food, that is the circulation of the food, the digestion of the food, the metabolization, the catabolism and the anabolism of the diet, of the food in the digestive system. So بعد تعب التوالي الطعام, after the digestive system become tired of the digestion, of the metabolism, catabolism and anabolism, so there is need for relaxation and recreation. والاستغلالها بإصلاحه, and استغلالها بإصلاحه, by benefiting with that through the structure of it. So when the digestive system become rectified, it get recovered, so you would have huge of benefit with your health and with other issues. So with this we would be able to understand that the fasting is highly beneficial to the human health. It is of beneficial with respect to something of the digestive system, even to your respiratory system. Allahul Musta'an. It is that is very important. So Ibn Bassam decided to mention regarding the benefit of it with respect to the health, to the health aspect. And he mentioned هذه نبذة يسيرة إلى شيء من حكم الله تعالى وأسراره, وهذه نبذة يسيرة إلى شيء من حكم الله تعالى وأسراره. This is a kind of short synopsis. This is a kind of summarized synopsis that mention about something of the divine wisdom, the Most High, and the secret of Him in terms of His matters. He said هذه نبذة يسيرة. This is a short synopsis. This is a short synopsis. This is a summarized synopsis. يسيرة, that is a small one. إلى شيء من حكم الله تعالى, with respect to something about the wisdom of the Almighty, the Most High, وأسراره, and His secrets. So he said that واستقصاء ما يحيط به العقل البشري يحتاج إلى تصانيف مستقلة. واستقصاء ما يحيط به العقل البشري يحتاج إلى تصانيف مستقلة. Compiling that which will be sufficient to the mental of human, to the human sense. يحتاج إلى تصانيف مستقلة. It requires short publications. What he meant is that واستقصاء ما يحيط به العقل البشري, something that can encompasses the sense, the mind of human, requires إلى تصانيف مستقلة, to some, that is short publications. So at times huge information doesn't provide the need, but a summarized information, a kind of synopsis, a brief information provide what is needed. So he says that وَفَضْلًا أَمَّا لَا يَعْلَمُهُ إِلَّا اللَّهَ تَعَالَى, most especially in something that nobody knows but the Almighty, the Most High. من الأسرار الحكيمة الرشيدة, from the secret of wisdom, the secret of guidance, the secret of wisdom and guidance. So if something of guidance or something of wisdom which is related to the divine knowledge, so a kind of information cannot just provide something that is related to that. Maybe a huge information would explain everything, and maybe a small information would explain everything. That's why you would see most of the publications in the usul, they are summarized one. The huge publications, huge volumes are in other issues. But in the field of theology or something related to the usul, you would see the righteous predecessors, they maintain short publications or brief, that is informative articles. So that's what he tried to mention. So due to the time